Next is a memo from me with regard to plans for feasibility study and schematic design for school town admin building. I'm proposing that the town authorize the expenditure of $955,000 from free cash for the beginning stages of a feasibility study and schematic design for a town hall school administration building.
I would like to see the feasibility study move forward for this town meeting. This way here, if we can build a town hall and then the senior center, this becomes a place where the children over at the Wildwood could be placed.
MJ Burns, Wilmington School Committee board member. Well, I wasn't expecting to speak this evening, but comes to a surprise with regards to the memorandum regarding the feasibility study that you're proposing for the town school building administration. My concern around that is that I know our board and the superintendent of schools wasn't aware of the suggestion that you'd be making this evening, which certainly up to your discretion, but seeing that this is a collaboration in the future, I would just had anticipated that discussion would at least be brought to the school district so that we are at least aware that you're undertaking that discussion. I know as a resident and as a board member, I would not be voting for $155,000 free cash feasibility study for an administration building or town hall. Yes, I understand a lot of the buildings that we all are housed in are over 50, 60 years old. We currently have a school falling apart around some of our most vulnerable residents. And these are 3 to 5-year-olds. And when I mean falling, I mean that in the most factual sense without any dramatics. That is a priority. When we are charged by the Department of Education and this great nation to educate our students to the best of our abilities, can't do so when they don't have heat. Our administrators in the central office would work in a tent before they would see kids of our communities struggle in a school of that sort, and staff. It's a health hazard, and I have to say, I know that you have to do a balancing act when you talk about the towns and where the needs are, but I hope that you take that in consideration, because I do think between the Wildwood School and the senior center, I think those should be the priorities.
On the town hall, I share that opinion. I don't think that the town hall is the #1 priority in my personal opinion.
I don't really consider spending between $20 and $30 million for town hall, school administration building, a conservative approach to the budget when we have so much up in the air with the fire substation, really not knowing what's going on with the schools yet. So to take on a $20 to $30 million project seems like too much.
Just to be clear, I think the manager's proposing a certain amount of money for a feasibility, not 20 or 30 million, just to be clear on that, right?
Sure, so I think $1 million for a project that is not appropriate yet.
955,000, just to be clear.
955.
Thank you.
I like to talk in round numbers. So roughly $1 million to come up with a plan for something that isn't really, it's not the appropriate time for it yet. I mean, certainly at some point it'll have to be addressed. If we're gonna do $20 million to free up this space, it's a lot of money.
Mr. Chair, where's $20 million coming from?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Facilities master plan said 20, and then I think in the presentation you had that was updated by, I forget what the name of the agency was, they had 29 million.
So the
Without a
initial,
feasibility study, I don't know that we can throw those numbers out. Right?
so
But that's the end goal. The feasibility study is to identify how and where we're going to spend this $20 to $30 million. So it's not pulling it out of the air.
So the numbers came from first the feasibility master plan identified the potential cost of a school town admin building as something in the order of just under 20 million. The more recent number that I obtained was $29.2 million. So those again are just ballpark numbers. Obviously nothing is cast in stone until a feasibility study is done, but those are the potential numbers.
Maybe just as a follow-up to each of the selectmen, I think the question really has to be, is this the project that should get taken on first with everything that we have going on? I know it's going to go to the annual town meeting, but I know that, the selectmen the people in the town look to you for some guidance on this. And so I think that we really have to look at it if this is the project that should be done right now, because it's a big piece of the total cost. And I think it's just too big of a piece to take on first. And it's not the priority either. I mean, we've all kind of talked about that, so.
Thank you for your comments. All of this will be discussed in the coming weeks, and it will culminate with our town meeting on May 2nd. So that's the best part about having an open town meeting form of government. If you don't like something, you can vote it down. So we encourage everybody to come to town meeting.
There will be inevitable and legitimate differences of opinion and approaches and priorities. In the words of Abraham Lincoln, quote, "You cannot escape the responsibility of tomorrow by evading it today," end quote. So I would suggest that we are at a crossroads of sorts. It's clear that there are many options to pursue. One thing that is clear, that is that we cannot tackle all these projects at once. The town does not have the bandwidth from a financial resources standpoint to deal with all these projects.
And I think we do have more other priorities other than the town hall, respectfully, Mr. Manager and the superintendent, to the town hall or the school administration building. And I look at this and I say to myself, you got to put priorities in life. We've been talking for years of a fire substation in North Wilmington. We have yet identified, I'm glad to hear you say tonight, Mr. Manager, and I think it's crucial for us to identify an area so we can actually start the project. We take a look at going to the town meeting, spending, what, $955,000 on a feasibility study. You know, being on the board a long time, you have memory. And I remember us, when we were talking about building a brand-new library, we spent thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars on a feasibility study, but yet when it came to the appropriation, the townspeople voted it down now. Believe that we need to do a jump start now. I think that if we was to take $8 million out of free cash and build a fire substation in North Wilmington, take $8 million in that vicinity to build and create a brand-new senior center that we need. And the other thing is, by the time we actually, if we're blessed enough for the MSBA to even come back, we're talking 5-6 years from now, providing that the folks will foot the bill in this community, because there is no magic credit card. It may take 5 to 6 years before we even build a school. Why don't we take $8 million out of free cash and distribute it within the school systems with roofing, windows, and HVAC? I mean, it's going to take us a half a dozen years before we even look at a possibility of a construction of a new school. We're blessed to have all this money as free cash. We need to utilize that now. I don't see what the advantage is, us having $50 million on the way we're going in 2 years from now. And I understand the Department of Revenue wants to make sure we have at least 15%, you know, for free cash when it comes to our budget. We're looking at, what, $18 million. If we put $6 million in the next 2 years, okay, and we spend $24 million in free cash to do these projects, we're going to be back to $30 million, above and beyond 15%, without raising one tax dollar. And I know we can all give a nice talk, and I get that. But, you know, I'd be opposed to any 2.5 override or any debt exclusion. We have the money, we need to do it. And I say it once again, that, you know, relative to these feasibility studies, we should have everything under one umbrella. We can do an intelligent plan, go to the folks for X amount of dollars, you know, we can break it down, 8.3 million, 8 million, you know, in the article it would state, you know, for construction, you know, architect, engineering, site work, to actually let the folks know what they're voting for and how much. Because I'd hate to see us go to town meeting this year, $1.6 million, and the folks don't vote to appropriate it, you know, and then, or they do a vote to appropriate it, and then there's not the funding to do a project. I think the town hall, I think the senior center would go, but the town hall, Mr. Manager, respectfully, I just think we have more priorities. And we talk about quality of our kids. You know, we just can't wait 5-6 years for the MSBA to come back to us. We need to do something now. And I firmly believe that. Take those funds and do something, at least, you know, roofing, windows, HVAC. Those are the most crucial things you want in your home. And that's how I think that's how we should go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know I spoke a few minutes, and that's how I feel.
I will note that I think I'm not right now enamored with the idea of a new town hall school administration building in the next year. So we're talking fiscal 21 right now and the fiscal 22. I think that we might not need to go that quickly.
I echo what Mr. McCoy and Mr. Eaton touched upon. I understand the planning purposes of the Town Hall School Administration Building. That feasibility study isn't given any type of preferential treatment over the senior center feasibility study or any of the discussions we've had on that. So it's ultimately going to be up to the town to attend to determine if they want that to go forward next year or if they want to wait. I personally believe I would like to know the school plan first because I think that's going to tell us what facilities might be available.